All right, welcome. Today we are jumping headfirst into a toolkit that basically runs the modern software world, the Spring Framework for Java. If you've ever wondered how those huge, complex Java applications get built and stay manageable, well, you're about to find out.
You know, for a lot of us today, spinning up a new Java project feels almost easy, like magic. But I want you to stop and ask yourself this question. Was it always this simple? The answer, and I mean this, is a huge, emphatic no. Not even close. And this right here gets to the absolute heart of it. On one side, you had the old way, traditional Java. Everything was a manual chore, and your code was this big, tangled knot. You'd change one thing over here, and 10 other things would break. On the other side, you have Spring. It's automated, it's modular, it's built to be flexible. This is the revolution we're going to talk about. To really appreciate just how brilliant Spring is, first, we have to feel the pain that it solved. So let's step into the time machine and look at Java's pre-Spring problems. Okay, seriously, imagine building a skyscraper, but you have to forge every single nut and bolt by hand. That's what it felt like. You had to manually configure everything. Just setting up the basic plumbing was ridiculously complex. And the so-called solution at the time, these things called Enterprise Java Beans, or EJBs, they were just notoriously heavy, incredibly slow, and an absolute nightmare to work with. And right into that mess, into all that complexity, stepped this powerful, simple idea, an idea that changed everything. And that brings us right to our next section, Spring, a simpler way. The story really kicks off in the early 2000s. The entire developer world was just groaning under the weight of these awful EJBs. Then, in 2003, this guy named Rod Johnson comes along with a vision for a lightweight, much simpler alternative. That vision became the Spring Framework. And its goal today? It's exactly the same as it was back then, to make building modern applications simple. So you've got to understand, Spring isn't just one little tool. Oh no, it's a massive ecosystem. It's like a complete professional-grade toolbox that a developer can pull from to solve pretty much any problem. So, let's open it up. So you need to build a website or a web service. Spring's got you. Spring MVC is the workhorse, perfect for building solid, traditional web apps. But if you need to go next level for high-traffic modern apps, there's Spring Webflux, which is built for reactive programming that can handle a crazy amount of users all at once. And, of course, what's an app without data? But dealing with databases can be so tedious, right? All that repetitive, error-prone code. Well, Spring just swoops in and handles it. Tools like Spring Data and Spring JDBC make database work so much cleaner, letting you focus on what your app actually does. But this is probably the one that shot Spring into the stratosphere. I'm talking about Spring Boot. This was a complete game changer. It took the time to get a project started from like days down to minutes. Seriously, a fully running, production-ready app in minutes. And the Spring CLI just makes it even faster. Okay, that toolbox is impressive, no doubt. But how? What's the secret sauce that makes it all so powerful yet so simple? Let's pull back the curtain and see how it all works. The absolute foundation, the bedrock of all of Spring, is this idea called inversion of control, or IOC. Now, traditionally, your code is the boss. It creates objects, it manages them, it wires them up. IOC flips that whole thing on its head. It says, you know what, I'm going to let the Spring Framework be the boss. You just tell Spring what you need, and it handles all the grunt work. Think of it this way. When you go to a nice restaurant, you don't storm into the kitchen, grab the ingredients, and start cooking, right? Of course not. You just look at the menu and tell the chef what you want. In this story, Spring is your application's master chef. It does all the prep work and just brings you the finished meal. So if inversion of control is the big philosophy, then dependency injection, or DI, is how it actually happens. It's the action. It's the process where that master chef, the Spring container, looks at your code, sees what it needs to run, its dependencies, and then provides or injects them right where they're needed. Here's another way to see it. Your code is like a car. To run, it needs an engine. With dependency injection, you don't have to build the engine yourself and then figure out how to install it. The factory, Spring, just delivers a working engine and plugs it in for you. This makes your code way more modular and so much easier to test.
Now there's one other bit of magic that makes Spring so clean, and it's called Aspect-Oriented Programming, or AOP. Sounds fancy, but it's a really clever idea. Think about things like security checks or logging. You need that stuff all over your application. AOP lets you define that logic in one single place instead of scattering it everywhere.
I love this analogy. Your main application logic, that's the base cake. AOP lets you add other layers, like a layer of security frosting or a layer of transaction management filling, all without having to mess up the original cake recipe. It keeps your core logic focused on just one job. So you take these incredibly powerful yet simple ideas and you can start to see their massive real-world impact. And that brings us to our final section, why Spring is still dominating the entire enterprise world. Look, Spring isn't just a cool idea in a textbook. It is battle-hardened. It's proven. The biggest e-commerce sites trust it for their transactions. The world's banks rely on it for financial safety. Healthcare systems use it to keep patient records safe. Social media platforms use it to scale to millions and millions of users. It just flat out works. So let's bring this full circle. The difference is just night and day. You go from manual, painful work to automation, from tangled, brittle code to clean, reusable components. And you go from having to build everything from scratch to getting things like security and data access right out of the box. The advantage is just massive. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world where our applications are only getting more complex, more distributed, and more business critical every single day, isn't that radical simplicity that Spring pioneered more essential now than it has ever been? Thanks for watching.